who of you were here for Andy's presentation in the morning? Can you raise your hands? All right, quite a bit. Thank you for coming for the last presentation today, and thank you for being here in the morning. So we cannot have too much of a good thing.
No,
you know?
absolutely.
No.
I'm just observing all these people leaving the auditorium, Roisin, so I don't take it personally.
Yeah.
So I'll get going because it's fantastic to be here, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about resonates with the points that Peter made about the pilot shortage. And I'm not going to bore you to death with my career, but the fact of the matter is that what we're doing in the Airline Pilot Club draws down essentially to a large extent on the experience that I had in Ryanair when I was head of training for 18 years. And during that time, I'm told by one of our accountants, I would have trained about 10,000 people, just like folks in the room here, who left a flying school, I'm coming to that, left a flying school with maybe 220 hours, and they came to Ryanair and we turned them into really safe and effective pilots. And we did that through innovation, hard work, and a lot of hard work on the part of the individuals. One of those was a young man called Peter Hornfeld, who was an SFI, took up one of the first opportunities that we created to become a simulator flight instructor. And you saw where it's taken him, and well done, Peter, in your entire career. It's fantastic. I got pulled into EASA because when you're training 10,000 pilots, EASA tends to listen to you. So we went over to Cologne and EASA, and we helped them produce a really effective training program called the APS MCC, and I'm sure some of you will have heard of that. And that course has had a really dramatic effect on the ability for people to come out of any training school, any ATO, complete that course in a good ATO, and you will have a 75 to 95% chance of passing an airline assessment. And without that course, you're going to bump around at about 55 to 60%. So that course is actually extremely helpful. And all the partner ATOs that we have an APS MCC, and with our help, it's one of the best in the business. After Ryanair 2019, I set up APC, started working with airlines, and actually with Peter, we set up the Airline Pilot Club because we wanted to do something about the pilot shortage. And we were getting a lot of traction. We had a solution in mind, which was to help with the funding piece, which is always the biggest problem. And this thing called COVID came along, and the pandemic, and a lot of plans were knocked out of shape since then. But we've kept going, and I'm just going to quickly show you some statistics on our growth. Our ecosystem is basically, and the concept around the ecosystem is to unite people who are determined to become a pilot, try and find what we can do to help them as individuals, introduce them to carefully selected ATOs, because there are loads and loads of ATOs out there, many, many ATOs. And I'm afraid to say there's a variation in the quality out there, okay? And that variation can cause people an awful lot of heartache and an awful lot of cost. So what we've done in APC is we deploy people. Peter actually did a really good review on Green Flight Academy recently. So we send experts out to our partner ATOs so that they can hear what we have to say about them with a big long audit checklist, and we give them a report and we work with them to improve to a standard where I, as the former head of training, will put them on the APC website. So any ATO that you see on the APC website has invested in very high quality training, and they put a lot of hard work into it. And I really take my hat off to them, and I like to acknowledge them. So we try and unite. The ecosystem is to take the people, the schools, and connect them to airlines. And that's what we're doing now, which is great. So we facilitate the professional growth of pilots. We bridge the gap between the training and the career. We reward high quality ATOs by mentioning them in situations like this, and also pointing our members to those schools where they were going to get great education. And then we deliver safe and efficient safe and efficient pilots to the airlines. Just a quick look at our growth. In November 2021, we had 800 members. Now we have over 20,000. Now I know that's dwarfed when we hear about Peter's numbers, but still, it's a really satisfying number from our point of view, because it shows that our model, a freemium model, which I'll come to now, everything in Ryanair, everything in APC is free. You're free to join. There's so many free services there, and they're all designed to help you as an individual improve to a standard where you can knock on the door of an airline and pass their airline assessment. So 20,000 members, we have a block of software that allows us to analyze those people, see who they are, whether they're qualified or not, and what they're interested in. And we can provide them with opportunities with our partner airlines. You can see the 17 ATOs there. We've done audits on 17 ATOs. There are 14 on our website, and you can do the maths yourself. So some of the ATOs that we've audited, we just haven't felt comfortable with, and they remain friends, but they haven't reached the standard that we require. So I'm just going to reiterate once more. If you're looking for an ATO, hit the APC website, look at our partner ATOs, and we'll save you and your folks an awful lot of heartache and effort in finding the right school for you. So, talking about aviation, and I'm just going to, the aviation industry's evolution, the impact on pilot training and recruitment, and the airlines' needs. So what the airlines need are safe and effective pilots. But these days, that's being challenged more and more because of complexities in the system, in our lives, and social media. So if you look at the left to right scan there, we went from iron dial cockpits and, the first flight to a 787 or an A350 cockpit, which is the most amazing work environment in the world. And we did that in 120 years. But if you look at the rate of change, this happened in 60 years. So you have a DC-10 on the left, and again, an A350 on the right. And there's an awful lot happening, and really great stuff happening in the engineering side of things, okay? Like the aircraft on the left there, I'm pretty sure the L1011 was the one that introduced the first EGPWS after the accident in the Everglades. So there's a lot of tech development happening. And it's interesting to look at the comparative evolution of how we train and deal with our pilots in the same time frame. So if you think about it, and I remember this happening, around that time, we introduced this concept called human factors. It was the first time that people understood that when an aircraft crashed, there was a factor in it other than pilot error. And, pilot error is a very easy causal effect of an accident. It takes the responsibility away from the manufacturer, from the operator, maybe even from the regulator. You blame the pilot. So NASA was actually involved in introducing the first human factors concepts and training. And it was revolutionary at the time that somebody actually thought that maybe the fact that the human in the cockpit might need some help and give him proper training, or her proper training, to deal with the situations that come up because of the limitations of themselves as a human being. And there are many, okay? So we started with human factors around late 60s, 70s, into the 80s. That metamorphosized in a very good way into crew resource management, CRM. And CRM has been the bedrock of how you train a pilot to behave in a certain way, especially in conjunction with a crew member in a multi-crew situation. So CRM was an enhancement and an improvement on human factors, and for many years it stood as the cornerstone of the training. And it still is there. It's in ROFC 115, which is the EASA regulation that governs how current airline pilots are trained in CRM. Very complex. But the good news is that we've evolved even further now. And what we have now are these wonderful things called the 9 pilot competencies. And in all my time in this industry, the introduction of the 9 pilot competencies has been probably the single best way to understand what it is that you need to be a pilot, how to train those competencies, and then how to assess those competencies. And so this idea of the pilot competencies, there are 9, and they're fundamental now to the future of how we're going to train pilots, because one of the things that has been slow to happen in this context is that the training that underpins the movement from the left to right there, from the cockpit on the left, the DC-10 to the A350, if it wasn't for the introduction of these competencies, we'd still basically be training pilots the same way in 2024 as we would have been in 1984. And it's been very slow to change. There are vested interests that don't particularly want change, but thankfully, because of a thing called CBTA, competency-based training and assessment, that is the future of pilot training. And the first cousin of competency-based training and assessment is a thing called evidence-based training, which is associated with airline pilot training. So competencies are wonderful. So now we have a great combination of the pilot competencies, easy to understand, easy to train, easy to assess, and great aircraft, 787s, A350s, etc. So what could possibly go wrong? Well, life. So, the addition of automation brings its own challenges. So one of the things I'm sure you've heard about is a lot of people talking about the decay, the atrophy of pilots' ability to actually handle an airplane, to stick and rudder it, because they're so dependent on the automation, following the magenta line, and all of that. And, as a former head of training, a deputy chief pilot in Ryanair, I could understand how we wanted pilots to be able to fly an airplane if something went wrong. But equally, I was at the safety management system meetings where everything is driven by the safety. And there's no doubt about it that the safe operation is when you have the automatics engaged appropriately and used in the correct way. Okay, so it's not an answer to everything. You have to program the automation effectively and safely, and you have to know what you're doing. So even though the engineering has improved, it has produced some contradictory and contrarian problems such as handling skills. And now we're living in the world in 2024 when the environment is the only issue. And I remember talking to a guy called Jesper Rasmussen, who was the Director of Safety and Standards in EASA, because as part of a group that I was in, and I was chairman, when Greta was doing her thing, I was going into a meeting with the commission, and I was saying to myself, what are we going to talk about here? And then I thought about, well, look, the environment. So we put together this paper that was way ahead of its time, actually. And it said we need to do something about how pilots are trained in the actual act of training them, so that when they go onto the line flying, they are more disposed to make environmentally friendly decisions. And there are loads of environmentally friendly or unfriendly decisions that a pilot can make. How much fuel they're going to take, how quickly they're going to burn it. Are they going to burn it because they want to get home quickly and they go at a fast speed? Do they take a lazy option in terms of deploying flaps and landing gear? And all of this costs carbon. And the carbon is ejected out of the back of the airplane, and the carbon budget is affected. So this is a new pressure. Now, you could say this is a positive pressure, but it's a new pressure coming on the modern pilot. They have to be adaptable. So it's the rate of change is remarkable. And the one thing about aviation that you can absolutely bank on is that things are going to change. Just when you think things are safe and settled and kind of, all right, I've got this now, something will come along. And, with tech comes challenges. So we all thought flying in a 737-800, it was a GPS-based airplane. Fantastic, right? In France, they were ripping up VORs and ILSs as quickly as they could, okay? And now a fellow with a backpack can wreck an entire GPS system. And not only can they jam it, but they can spoof it, which is even more dangerous. So while tech is advancing, the contrarian and the counterbalancing threats also increase, which means that you have to have resilience. And resilience is the ability to return to the place or state that you were in before something happened. And in an aviation context, resilience means, can a pilot, when a shock occurs, return to a safe state, either through their own knowledge, skills, and attitude, but in particular, the training that they received during their type rating training, their initial ab initio training, type rating training, line training, etc. So the other things that are happening is society is changing. So we live in a diverse world now, and people need to be careful how they address people, how they deal with that diverse environment that we live and work in. As Peter said, we could do a lot better in the aviation industry trying to attract more ladies, but it's a great career and it's always open to them, and we'd love to see them. Gen Z, I did a presentation on Gen Z in EATS there in November in Portugal, and it was really remarkable how the Gen Z generation could actually change the airline industry because of their paradigm and what they think the world should look like. So they're very interested in the environment, they're very interested in diversity, they're very interested in work-life balance, and they have certain demands as a generation that are already being felt in the marketplace. And McKinsey put out a remarkable report about that, if you're ever interested in looking into it. And the other thing then is social media identity. So Peter would represent a really positive aspect of social media, okay? But we all know there's a dark side to it, and people can be destroyed by social media. And that's all happening when they're getting the gear up, deciding what fuel to take, looking at the weather, looking at the NOTAMs. So all this stuff is going on. So, knowledge skills aren't necessarily enough anymore. The knowledge that you get through your training, the skills that you get through your training, they're not necessarily enough anymore. We need something more. So what we're trying to do in APC is to develop this airline-ready person. And there's a hyphen between airline and ready, because if you can produce somebody from an ab initio training environment that isn't just somebody holding a license, that's one type of graduate. If you can produce that graduate, but also instill in him or her the knowledge and the attitude and the skills that you need to quickly and effectively slot into a demanding environment in an airline, well, now you're doing everybody a favour. You're doing the individual a favour. You're doing the airline a favour, because you're going to deliver well-trained, excellent attitude, capable, well-prepared people to the airline operation. And then the schools that they come from will be recognised as a high-quality school, and they'll benefit as well. So what we're trying to do is that. And this diagram here at the top of it tries to explain our freemium model. So there's freemium and premium. We don't have a premium. Everybody gets in free. You can join as, I want to be a pilot, I'm training to be a pilot, or I am a qualified pilot. You get free and focused psychometric assessments. So we have a free one. You can also purchase remarkably good preparation assessments for an Aon assessment or for a symbiotics assessment. You can come to me and we can discuss those reports with me. I did it this week, and it was a remarkable experience talking to somebody who didn't really accept the weakness that was pointed out, kept pushing back against it, and every time he opened his mouth, he was proving the report to be right. I actually started laughing at the end of it. But anyway, it's great. They've been described as spooky to me. Free competency and CRM learning, so we have our own learning management system, and we've put excellent material on there that will help somebody just starting, somebody who's getting towards the APS MCC stage, or indeed as a qualified pilot coming up for a promotion, and then somebody who's getting ready to start their ATPL. So there's great material in there for that. We've got great webinars, which we've done with recently with Petter and Green Flight Academy. But next week we're having one with Bartolini. They're going to talk about their Ryanair Mentor Partnership. And last week we had Drew Elbert, who's the Deputy Chief Pilot in Ryanair, giving a fantastic lecture on the GPS spoofing and GPS jamming. And so they're all free to our members to come along to. They're highly educational. We record them and we put them in a thing called APC TV, and they're there forever for people to refer to. And then the community support. Like I've often been criticised for calling the Airline Pilot Club a club, because it implies amateurism and it implies amateurism, right? It couldn't be further from the truth. My whole idea was to put together a community that would help people move from where they think they might want to be, which is a pilot, to being an excellent pilot, and doing that in the shortest and the most high quality way. So I love the word club, because it implies community. It implies assistance, support, help. And we have a great Discord community where people help each other. They can talk to me. When we were working with Avianca, I took so many calls, so many messages in Discord trying to deal with disappointed people, happy people. I nearly got a repetitive injury in my thumbs from answering all the Discord queries on my phone. So that's what we do. We try and it's all to do with the shortage, and Petter touched it. Like we want to excite in people who might never really have thought about being a pilot. We want to give them the opportunity, just by entering a community for free, to learn about themselves and to learn about the career, and then we'll help them on their way if it's for them. The student well-being is really important. This morning we were talking about pilot well-being, and we had a fantastic presentation from Welliba, and a great guy called Stuart Beach joined us by video from Resilient Pilot. And if you join APC for free, you can move from APC website in a couple of keystrokes to the Welliba website, where you will get your own personal dashboard, which will have analysed your current state of energy, your career development, your blockers and your supporting factors in your life. And they will give you your own bespoke plan to improve your situation. And with us, we're building in an aviation piece, and that means that if you come to APC, you get Welliba. If you get Welliba, you're going to get a well-being support that you can take for the rest of your life, okay? And of course, we have Resilient Pilot as well. And with Millstream, I'm just going to mention it, we have a fantastic loss of training expense insurance, and also loss of license insurance. But the training partners I've mentioned already, high quality ATOs endorsed by APC, and they have a commitment to excellence, and they have invested money in the commitment to excellence because they don't get the audit for free. That's how we actually try and make some money in APC. The point is, out of that Venn diagram, you are in our software. You exist in our community, and then we can take your CV and we can put it in front of hiring and recruiting airlines that need safe and efficient pilots who we have moulded and guided through our schools, through Wellaba, through interaction with me and my colleagues, into the type of pilot that the airlines need now, okay? And so that is the deal. You join us for free, we work with you, we get you a job in a partner airline. At the moment, our partner airlines we've 3 that are recruitment partner airlines. If you'd asked me this time last year, I would have had a blank slide. So I can tell you that APC is really making inroads into the airlines. There are several in this part of the world that we're deeply engaged with, and I'm hoping that this year you'll hear some really exciting announcements. Avianca, a fantastic airline, unbelievable operation over there in the Andes. They asked us to filter out 1,776 applicants down to 180, and we've done that using this thing called the Airline-Ready pilot pool, Hong Kong Express and Air Astana. Quickly, our ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. This is the bedrock of our software. We own the IP, and we've deployed it at the front end of our website, and it's also been deployed in Avianca, in Hong Kong Express, as a pure recruitment function. So when you join us, you're already in a recruitment process, okay? And when you join, your CV is online, all your results and which you've complete control over, you can present yourself to the airlines through APC in a way that makes you look great. And that's all done automatically or through the software. The Airline-Ready pilot pool, how do you get into it? Well, there are 2 streams. The first one is if you're on an ATPL course in our partner ATOs. One is you register with APC. You do an initial assessment, which is about 50 to 60% of the full Aon assessment that, say, Ryanair uses or Delta Airlines use. That is available in APC and only in APC. You get that, the result is recorded. You go into the APC preparation, which is the e-learning that I mentioned earlier, and other aspects that we'll work with you to develop your piloting. Go to a partner ATO, which, as we said, is high quality. Come out, and the APC will do a review of your progress with the ATO. And the whole idea is to get a picture of you and put you into this ready pool so that we can hand that ready pool almost en bloc to a recruiting airline and save them an awful lot of trouble, because we will have sifted and we will have figured out what type of people would suit what type of airline. And that's part of the software. Into the ready pool and then onto the airlines. If you are a graduate or you come from a different ATO, it's exactly the same, but we might want to look at you in the sim as part of a training session just to see where you are in your preparation for an assessment. Okay? So, I'm going to leave you with a couple of little quotes which some of our members have given. I know there's another one in the audience. I won't call on anyone to stand up and make a comment, but this is the type of feedback that we get. And we don't blow our trumpets about it, but it gives me huge satisfaction when we help people, because that's what we started out to do. We want to help people move from a dream to a career. And we've been doing that for 6 years now, despite, as I said, a really difficult situation called a pandemic. If you want to talk to us, we're here this afternoon and tomorrow. Meet us at that bay, booth 34, and we'll have a chat and see what we can do for you. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for an insightful presentation, and now we have an opportunity to ask lots and lots of questions.
Oh, thank you. I would like to ask if you have published requirements for ATOs to get to your website as an ATO partner.
We don't publish it because it's part of our intellectual property, but it is based on, obviously, the minimum the minimum standard they have to achieve is regulatory compliance, but like that is just a fig leaf, okay? Any ATO has to be regulatory compliant, and I could talk for ages about how the standards of that differs around Europe because of the national aviation authorities. But anyway, we have looked at ICAO, EASA and the FAA regulations, industry best practice through IATA, and then of course our own experience, decades doing it very effectively in Ryanair and other airlines, not just Ryanair, but a lot of the Ryanair people that I worked with are involved in that process. So we look at their management system, so we look at all their kind of compliance manual. Is the compliance system up to standard? Is the compliance system actually making sure that the ATOs are doing what they say they do? We look at their safety management system, make sure that the safety management system is compliant but also effective, and there's a huge difference. We look at their training manuals, obviously, and then we send an expert down, somebody like Peter, who has a foot in both camps, and by that I mean he's a very experienced airline pilot, instructor in simulator and online training, but also has had experience in an ATO during ab initio training. So he's able to go into an ATO and to really understand what it's like to push out an airplane from a hangar and get it into the air with the student and do it properly. So it's our kind of IP, but it's based on industry best practice, our own experience in doing it well for decades, and then of course the regulation. If you know any ATO that wants to find out more, just tell them to come my direction. Anybody else? How can we do it for nothing? That has to be a question. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? All this free? Yes, Peter.
How can you do it for nothing?
Good question. Yeah. I know. We do it for nothing. We do it for nothing for our members, okay? There are some small opt-in, optional payment things that are available in APC, but they're all very well worth the small amount of money that we charge. And we try to make our money from the ATOs and from the airlines that we work with eventually through the recruitment process, principally through the use of our software as a service.
I have a follow-up question.
Great.
Is there any progress on the help of funding?
Funding. Yeah, I actually did a presentation in Qashqai on this, and I started with this picture of a big fat banker, you know, a cartoon, chewing wads of dollars and euros, because what we tried to do, and we were this close, I mean really we were this close, we had this fantastic system, it's still there, and maybe if the environment is right, we might be able to come up with a situation where unsecured lending, which by the way is the key to everything. Secured lending is relatively easy to get, okay? You can get mom and dad or a guardian to guarantee a loan or sign over some equity, but it's the unsecured lending is going to be the key that opens all the doors and will absolutely transform the aviation industry, because there will be so many pilots available, we'll never have a shortage. If we keep the quality right, to end with your last slide, which is what I'm obsessed with, we'll be able to get pilots from, our logo is pilots from every background. That's our catch call. We want people from every background to get a chance to become an airline pilot because we know how brilliant it is. So progress, no, I'd say not, because since COVID, not only have we had COVID, but think about it. We've had COVID, the pandemic, the airline industry nearly disappeared, okay? Then we had a fella in Russia who decided he wanted to get too big for his boots and invaded a country. So now we have a continental war in Europe. That kicked off something that hadn't been talked about for ages, which is inflation. And as soon as you have inflation in the system, interest rates go up. So you go back to the banker and you're asking the banker, will you lend 100,000 euros to an unemployed, unqualified 21-year-old who wants to go into the aviation industry? It's usually a short conversation. But we were so close because we were able to show through the Ryanair experience that if you put the effort into the quality, you can come out with 90, 95, 98% pass rates at the airline assessment if the training is right. And that's what the whole basis of APC is designed around quality. And I'm still convinced that there's a place for it if we can find the right set of circumstances. Mm-hmm. So, no, unfortunately not, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
thank you for your question. There's one more question out there.
Yeah, hey, I'm John, everybody. I come from America, and I've been living in Europe for about 2 years now. And it's quite clear that Peter and you have known for quite some time. And Peter has a very good online presence, so a lot of my mentorship actually comes from Peter's channel. It was very nice to see today that something like this is available. How would you suggest finding non-online mentors in the aviation industry?
Oh, well, I mean, look, you know, countless airline pilots started in a single pilot flying club, you know, and flying clubs are usually populated with enthusiasts and more than likely a couple of crusty grey-haired ex-airline pilots like myself who are more than happy to pass on the wisdom of their career. There are other influencers online. I don't really explore that area apart from my friendship with Peter, but I think that if you're not online, you have to actually go and meet someone and talk to someone. And maybe, probably the single best piece of advice I give you is if you're thinking about becoming a pilot, save up a few shillings and go down to your local flying club and spend an hour in an airplane. And if you like it and it likes you, you have a chance. Okay, but in an hour you can learn an awful lot about whether or not flying is for you. It's quite amazing. 1 hour can save you an awful lot of angst and anguish and expense. So, yeah, a flying club and go and do it. Figure it out yourself. How does it suit you? Hello.
Hi. No, just the other thing, flying club is one thing, but also just go down to your local airport. There's like tons of people who have their own airplanes, also typically older people who, you know, if you help them, if you be their safety pilot, or even if they do their own maintenance, you help them with an oil change, they love you, and basically you get so much experience. So that for me opened up a completely new and different level, knowing these people.
Yeah, like being an enthusiastic contributor for nothing, you know, just being there can get you an awful lot of introduction, insight, and learning about, you know, whether the career is for you. Yeah.
So thanks for your questions.
Okay.
I will use the privilege of being a moderator, also asking my question. And myself being a pilot and a PPL pilot, and actually finding out at one point in my career that there is life outside aviation. So I moved into other companies. And one of the industries I was working was healthcare. And working in the healthcare, I realized one thing. We all, here in this room, we all have a risk of living up to 115, 20 years of age. So there's one thing we haven't really tackled today in the conference. We tackled all the issues from resilience to top performance and everything. We didn't tackle the issue of aging. So because we all speak about young pilots entering the industry, so we didn't speak about, you know, the older senior citizens actually entering that profession. So how about that big area, huge area that's out there actually, and it's becoming increasingly important?
Well, I think that any change in the current arrangements of your license terminating at 65 in Europe, 67 in the States now, I believe. It has to be data-based. Okay, so I presume the decision that the FAA made to deal with the real pilot shortage that existed over there to extend the validity of license to 67 was data-based. And as the data builds and people are more capable and resilient as they grow older, there'll be a strong case for keeping them in the industry. Now, maybe not flying, you know, 17-hour sectors between Seoul and wherever, or you know, London and Karachi, but they could have a wonderful role to play in the mentoring, in selling the career, and in training. You know, like I talked to a guy here. He's working with Cannes Aviation, which is a lovely ATO down on the Mediterranean. Calvin is his name, and I asked him how many hours, because I knew it was a 747. How many hours have you got in the 747? 26,000 hours on a 747, okay? And 5,000 hours as a simulator instructor and examiner. Now, he's still involved, But isn't it terrible to think that another guy who has 25,000 hours and 4,000 hours in a simulator just goes away, fades away, without passing on that enthusiasm, that knowledge and that skill and everything. Yeah, so there's a huge role for them to play. Whether they'll be at the control columns, the controls of the aircraft all the time when they move on and age, I don't know. But, it's a demanding career as well. The airline pilot career is demanding, and it's not an old person's job anymore, I think. I think it's probably about right at the moment where it is. But I think that they have a huge role to play in the support and the training and bringing on the next generation, for sure.
Thank you so much. On that positive note, do we have more questions? Or we can finish off the day and with a round of applause. Thank you, Andy.